The ingredients for this bread are super simple. We've got yeast, salt, flour, water. That's it. Just the 4 ingredients. Now generally, I like to mix in a plastic container with a lid. Makes it a lot easier for proofing and putting it aside. But today, I'm gonna show you how to do it in a bowl, in case you wanna do it in a bowl, and also you'll get a better shot at what's going on. We're going with 400 milliliters or 1 3/4 cup. The yeast, we're going for 2 grams or a half teaspoon. Now, if you haven't used your yeast in a while, you might wanna make sure it blooms. You'll see it kind of grow. If you use it a lot, we can just move on. 500 grams of all-purpose flour. Not bread flour, all-purpose flour. You might think I'm crazy, but try it. 500 grams or 3 3/4 cup flour. Salt. I like to use table salt because it will mix in a little easier. 11 grams or 1 1/2 teaspoon. For mixing, I just use a rubber spatula. You could do this in a KitchenAid, just don't mix it a ton because this is a bread you don't need to knead. We just stir it, mix it, let it rise. I like to use the rubber spatula to scrape off the sides and just mix it around. Lost a piece. Once it's mostly incorporated, like this, I switch to mixing by hand, and I like to fold and pinch, and I'll show you that. I like to keep a hand wet with cold water. It helps it so it doesn't stick as much. So the pinch method is you're just pinching with the dough. And what this is doing is it's mixing the salt, the yeast, everything together so you get a good uniform flavor, uniform rising or proofing. And then fold. I like to do 4 folds and then mix again. And you'll do this for about 3 to 5 minutes. And this is what your dough should look like. It is a very wet dough. If it's like a solid ball, you did something wrong. It should be wet like this, okay? Now, what we're gonna do, we can put some saran wrap over top, or if you do have a container like we talked about, I would use that. Makes it a little easier. And then, we're gonna let this proof for about at least 4 hours. The longer, the better. So if you're gonna have this for dinner, I would make it as early in the day as you can, because the longer you let it proof, the better the flavor gets. One of the things that's important is folding. We're gonna try and do 2 folds within the first couple hours. Ideally, you wanna wait about a half hour, do your first fold, then another half hour or hour, it's not an exact science, but do a second fold, and here's why. I'll show you a picture right here. These are 2 different bins. Both have the exact same amount of everything. The one on the left, we did 2 folds. The one on the right, we left alone. And this is 3 hours after we did the last fold, and you can see it still has kept its shape. The dough that had the folds rose significantly more than the other. So this step we have put to the test, and it is useful. Here's what the dough looks like right when we transfer it to the bin. It's time for our first fold. You know when it's ready to fold when the dough has expanded outward. Let me show you. Whereas before it was taking up maybe 3/4 of it, it has spread outward now. Let's take each corner, pull up, put it to the center. I forgot, get your hand a little wet. Okay, with a wet hand, pull the corner up and in. See how that just came right off? Grab the corner, fold it in, corner, in. And that is what it should look like. We're ready for the second fold. And just like the last, we're just gonna do pretty much 4 corners. Get a wet hand, pull it, And there you have it. We have let our dough bulk ferment for about 7 hours. And during that time, we did 2 folds. Now what we're gonna do is we're going to put our dough in a basket. I prefer using a basket like this and then covering it with plastic. But if you don't have this, don't run away quite yet, because I made 2 batches. So I'm gonna show you 2 ways to do it. You can take just a plain old bowl, okay? Get a dish rag, or no, what is this called? Dish towel, okay? Put it in. Now, what you need to do is get some flour and sprinkle your work surface. That way the dough doesn't stick all over. And we're gonna get the dough out. I like to make sure my hands have flour on them, so that way they don't stick too much. And we're just gonna pull this dough out. I like to try and form it up into a ball. So I will take a corner, pull it out, bring it up. Take a corner, pull it out, bring it up. And just do that 4 times until we have a nice little ball here. Sometimes a 5th. Boom, we've got a ball here. You could do a few different options here. Flip it over, put your hands underneath and pull it toward you. Rotate, pull it toward you, and you're pretty much done. You could also use your hand and kind of pinch it together. What we're trying to do here is create a little surface tension on the bread to give it a nice uniform circular look. 2 schools of thought here. You can put the crease side face down in the basket so that when you bake it, this side is up again and it will naturally crack open and give it, I think, a cool look, and it will open up a little easier. Or you can put this up in the basket so when you bake it, it's down and you have a nice smooth area and you can cut exactly how you want it to look. So depending on how you like it is what you can do there. Take our bowl with the towel and we're gonna sprinkle some flour in it. And again, this is the method you can use if you don't have a proofing basket. I recommend the proofing basket. It's way easier. You don't have to clean all this up after. But this will get you by for now. So you can try out baking easy artisan bread. Make sure you get a good amount because you don't want it to stick to your towel here. And then I'm gonna go in crease side down because I want to have it up later. And then I sprinkle just a little bit on top. And then cover with another towel. What we do now, we grab our proofing basket, add some flour to it, and I like to put it in crease side down. And once it's in, hit it with a little more flour, just to make sure it's not gonna stick along those edges as it proofs and rises. I just use a Hawaiian roll bag. We're just kind of trying to keep it from drying out. Set that aside for about an hour to an hour and a half. I'll show you how you'll know when it's ready to bake. While our dough is sitting here doing its thing, let's address why we use a Dutch oven. So, I don't have a professional oven with steam injection and all that stuff. So we put the dough in a Dutch oven because it traps the moisture that it lets off and helps steam it. And that's what helps it rise. A nice moist environment helps the dough rise. Put it in the oven on 450 degrees. Let it start coming up to temp. We want it nice and hot. So when we stick the dough in, it'll get a shock of heat and start rising, and that steam will just help it grow, 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 grow. Let's get it into the oven. I'm gonna show you the poke test. This is how we know if it's ready to bake. So you're gonna poke it, pull your finger out, and see how quickly that filled in. It didn't fill in completely, but it bounced back pretty quick. That means it's not done. Okay, let's show the poke test again. You can see it has risen significantly. So get your finger coated in flour so it doesn't stick. Go ahead and poke, pull your finger back, and see how it slowly comes back. It's not just springing back. So now we know this is ready. So let me show you how I like to transfer it into the Dutch oven. Let me show you how I put in the dough from the basket. Super easy, straightforward. I get my fingers along the back, place it in, and I flip it over, and then just pull it up. This is scalding hot, so be really careful with it. I like to take a sharp knife and just do a cross on it. You can do whatever design you want. I like to just do a cross because I'm just trying to help it rise, blossom. Put the lid on, we're going back in the oven. This one's a little bit trickier, hence the reason I really recommend you get a basket. But to start off, what you can do, it's kind of the same thing we did on the other, but you're just gonna flip it onto the table. Make sure your towel isn't too stuck. And now, take your hands, get one side up, get under the other side, and carefully place it in. Grab your knife, score it, back in the oven for 30 minutes. Our timer just went off. Now what you're gonna wanna do is pull the lid off and allow it to cook for about another 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how browned you want the top. I like to go about 7 minutes. After you've taken the hot lids out, I like to take my hot pads and put them on, just to let people know these are hot and dangerous and prevents me from accidentally coming back and burning my hand off. Okay, here is our loaf that was in a bowl. Here's our loaf that was in a proofing basket. Our bread has cooled for about 20 minutes. Let's cut into it and see how we did. The heel part here, my favorite. Take some butter. It's like, this is my favorite way to eat this stuff. Just good amount of butter, put it on. And the heel's great because it has so much of the crunch. Listen. Delicious bread. Real quick, if you've watched a few of my videos and you're liking them, please subscribe. Really helps out. Also, give this bread a try. Comment below. Let me know how it goes. Thanks for stopping by.